So in this video, I decided I wanted to talk about the S-class heroes in One Punch Man, and I couldn't really think of a great out of verse battle for them because I think while One Punch Man is very fun to scale, for the most part, they don't really have feats that take them, I guess, to the point that they would need to be to compete with like a lot of the more famous and popular versus battles characters. But in the universe, there is a question that does come up, and that's would the S class heroes have been able to stop Boros if Saitama wasn't there? And I think it's a pretty fun one to explore. Lets me like kind of get my feet wet a little bit with One Punch Man scaling. So I just figured it would be like a fun video to put together. So getting started, just to make sure we're clear, I'm going to include the S class heroes, but I'm not going to include Saitama. Obviously, he's not S class. And also, like, if he was included, obviously the result would be pretty clear. And then also not going to include Blast, because Blast, like, from what we've seen, wouldn't really care about someone like Garo. He's off dealing with his own, like, little side quest. So both of these characters won't be included. And also with Blast, we don't really have a more clear line of scaling for him. He's, like, one of the 2 or 3 S-class heroes that were, like, really like pretty unsure about like how they operate at like full potential. We'll probably see more of him in the upcoming chapters and such, but for now we have not seen much. And also, I guess worth noting, spoilers for the manga. I'm covering further than just the anime. I'm going up until like where the manga currently is, so not where the webtoon is, but where the manga is. So, for the S-class heroes, we have Tatsumaki, Atomic Samurai, Child Emperor, Metal Knight, who we won't really have too great scaling for. King, who, I think a lot of people like to include King and say, like, obviously he would win because he's basically like Saitama or whatever, but, we're not going that route. If that's how you want to explore it, then that's fine, but I'm just, there's no point in talking about it then. Zombie Man, Genos, Drive Knight, Pig God, I'm forgetting, Super Alloy Darkshine, Bang, Watchdog Man, also a character that we don't have crazy scaling for, Flashy Flash, Metal Bat, Tank Top Master, and Puri Puri Prisoner. So first, I just want to start off with the Boros scaling, and the main things we're going to talk about is, so first of all, his AP and destructive power. It depends on the scan and the translation. Some call it like a Planet Buster roar cannon. I've heard it called like the Star Collapser roar cannon or whatever. So because of that inconsistency, I don't think we can automatically say he has to be star level, right? Or even planet level. It's just the name of an attack. But what we do have is like a little more of a definitive statement of him saying that he could wipe out the whole surface of a planet. And also we see his attack like cause like a pretty big damage to like the surface of the earth, so it's not like it's not unreasonable to assume that that statement is probably about grounded, so we can put him off that like probably around like multi-continental plus. I think is probably about fair, probably not quite planet, although like I think there can be an argument for it. And then in terms of speed, he's able to surprise Saitama with his speed, which is like like gonna be a pretty crazy feat. Saitama is already shown like very casually deflecting light speed attacks from, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Guryu Ganshoop, I guess. He's like the little like telekinetic thing that was on the ship when Saitama was trying to find Boros. So he was able to very easily react to and deflect it very casually. So from that, we can assume that Boros is probably like pretty comfortably above light speed, or at least like yeah, I'd say like faster than light, but not like FTL plus or anything like that. And of course, so in terms of like durability, we can kind of scale him off of Saitama. Saitama's very like casually able to, well, first of all, he's able to jump from the moon to the earth, which, I don't really know if that's a strength feat. Kind of feels like it should be. But also with his like, his like normal punches, he's obviously able to do some great damage. When we see him actually defeat Boros, he needs to use a serious punch. And in terms of like what we've seen from Saitama, his normal punches are capable. Well, his serious punch you used to beat Elder Centipede, who we do have fighting against some of the S-class heroes, so we can probably use that as a part of our scaling. Elder Centipede, of course, going up against Bang. Bang was not confident that, or Bang really could not have defeated Elder Centipede there. Like narratively, it just doesn't seem to make sense that Bang could have. He was a little roughed up from his fight, but he didn't seem confident that he could take Elder Centipede. So based on that, very good chance that we can't get Bang to the levels of AP required to really do damage to Boros. Of course, Genos was also getting whooped by Elder Centipede. And then in terms of just Saitama's normal punches, his normal punch was able to really critically injure Psycho Sorochi when he punched one of her tentacles. Like she definitely felt the effect of it. It made her stagger, and that was an incredibly casual punch, not one of his serious punches. He was kind of just swatting it away. So now for the S-class heroes, I'm going to go over these guys kind of in order of how impressive I think they are, starting with the weaker ones and going to the higher. So first, Watchdog Man, we don't really have much feats for. Most we get from him is going to be him against a human Garo. And really for most of these guys, the scaling is going to be based on how they interact with different forms of Garo. So Tank Top Master, is about even with human Garo, but ultimately loses. Zombie Man. Really, the only thing about Zombie Man that's impressive is his durability and his regeneration power. He's able to pretty much survive being atomized by Homeless Emperor. And then of course, Puri Puri Prisoner gets pieced by a Garo that's starting to monsterize. So that's around where we would put all of them. And again, we'll talk about Garo a little later as well. Now for Drive Knight and Pig God, this is where we have some more consistent scaling. These guys were able to fight against two of the Cadre. And Cadre are dragon level plus, right? So at the very least, we can probably scale these guys to be multiple city level. And of course now, threat to multiple cities doesn't necessarily mean you have the straight AP to destroy multiple cities. I would say in the case of Nian, the Cadre cat that's super fast. I would say his danger level probably doesn't come from his AP. Definitely almost from his speed, and also his attacks are slicing, so they're not straight power, but they're still able to injure some pretty big characters. So I think for that point, it's worth mentioning Dragon probably has a bit of variety to it, but a threat to multiple cities probably means that we can comfortably put them city to city plus levels of strength, or just in general attack potency. Child Emperor we have fighting against Phoenix Man's evolved form, which is comfortably above dragon level. Zombie Man, again, we have his scaling against Homeless Emperor, right? And in terms of Homeless Emperor's destructive ability, he's able to destroy pretty much a mountain size area of land with his attack. And again, the Zombie Man was able to recover from this, so that really goes to show you just a crazy durable character. Metal Knight is a character we don't really have much for. I think I've heard people generally put him around Drive Knight or Child Emperor in terms of strength, but really we don't know what his full arsenal is capable of. I believe there's a statement somewhere in there where it's his arsenal could rival the S-class heroes in terms of destructive ability. And if you want to use that line of scaling, then that's fine. But, personally, I just don't think we can quite get him there based on what we've seen. But I don't think it really ultimately changes the result of the battle. So Atomic Samurai gets kind of pieced by Gold S. He's not even standing up to Plat S, which kind of, is going to be a pretty big anti-feat for him. He really, you can't get to the high tiers of S tier or S class if you're not able to deal with somebody like Plat or Gold or Plat S. Super Alloy Darkshine gets pieced by Monsterized Garo, and Bang goes pretty much toe to toe with a weakened Monsterized Garo at the end of all of his fights with Platinum S and such. And also, for Bang, we have a pretty definitive cap to his strength. We know that that meteor that was going to fall in the city that Saitama destroyed was about the size of a large building, size and weight. And, Bang wasn't able to deal with it. He, looked at it, he was there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to destroy something like that. So, in terms of his strength, he's definitely, very held back, maybe, high building to, small city level. But that's really all we have for his, attacking feats. Again, most One Punch Man scales, pretty low in terms of, raw strength. It's just how the series is written, and that's fine. So now for Metal Bat, his main scaling is going to be when he fought pretty much alongside Monsterized Garo against Sage Centipede, who's like, much stronger than Elder Centipede. So that's going to be something that really gets him like, to that higher level. And as a fight goes on, Metal Bat just gets stronger and stronger, which is also something that's going to be worth acknowledging. Flashy Flash, I think one of the more impressive and hyped up characters among the S class, is able to fight toe to toe with Plat S and Monsterized Garo, which is pretty impressive. And now, so for the top, of course, we have Tatsumaki and Genos, who are able to fight against Psychos Orochi, who's like, the fusion of Psychos and the monster King Orochi, who is like definitively and quite easily the strongest monster in the Monster Association. Like no contest really. Plat S, Sage Centipede should all scale reasonably below Psychos Orochi, but still worth like, discussing them because it helps us rank the other S-Class heroes. But Tatsumaki and Genos are the ones who are able to fight against and damage Psychos Orochi, so they're like going to be like pretty much the top of what S-Class has to offer in terms of AP. Of course, in terms of like speed, Flashy Flash probably wins it. And now it's going to be worth talking about some of the scaling for Psychos Orochi, because I think comparing Psychos Orochi to Boros is probably going to be our main line of scaling that gives us our answer here. And so Psychos Orochi was able to, have an attack that kind of sliced through the Earth's crust and removed like this very like sizable chunk of the Earth off the planet, right? And this is of course going to be like a pretty impressive feat, and it's pretty much, I would say like as good as it gets for Psychos Orochi. It's just like, this, I don't want to say small sliver of the Earth, because it's obviously a very impressive feat, at least as far as One Punch Man scaling goes, but it is like, compared to the Earth, like a pretty small slice. So we're not going to call Psychos Orochi planetary off of this. This is probably like I'd say like a continental feat, right? I think continental is very fair for what we see here. So, with that, I think there's already enough information for us to make like a pretty definitive conclusion, because I do think that this one's a bit of a mismatch, and I would give it to Boros. And so my logic here is, first of all, there's a lot of fodder that can be removed from the S-Class, right? And characters who we also just don't have scaling for. But like, Atomic Samurai, Pig God, Darkshine, Metal Knights, Zombie Man to an extent, Tank Top Master, Puri Puri Prisoner, Watchdog Man, all characters that we can largely ignore. So, looking at more so like, okay, so comparing him to Psychos Orochi, right? Obviously, we have much more, I would say like definitives. Like we have a more definitive feat for Psychos Orochi because we see her actually lift the like piece of Earth's crust off of the planet. But in terms of Boros, in terms of if we take the statements to be literal, and to be fair, you don't have to, right? But if you do take the statements to be at least kind of literal, we should at least have him be like, like approaching planetary levels of strength. And that doesn't sound too unreasonable, considering like the way the fight went. Saitama getting launched all the way to the moon and jumping back to Earth. Boros tanking consecutive normal punches, which were even able to damage, like, a normal punch being able to damage Psychos Orochi, right? So based on that, I think it's fair to say that there's like a good chance that Boros, in terms of durability and AP, scales like pretty highly above Psychos Orochi. And if he scales above Psychos Orochi, he definitely scales above 99% of the S-Class, with the exception of maybe Tatsumaki, but Tatsumaki is probably at least like close to relative to Psychos Orochi. Now, in terms of like, some more specific matchups, Atomic Samurai, really cool character, and I wish we had more to say for him, but like, in terms of, all of his stats, he's getting pieced by, Plat S, so he really can't be hurting Boros. I guess the most you could say is that maybe his like sword cutting technique should bypass conventional durability, so maybe that would be able to hurt Boros, but at the same time, like, I can't imagine him having this, he just doesn't have like the speed to touch Boros consistently. So for that reason, I think Boros pretty handedly deals with Atomic Samurai. Super Alloy Darkshine and Bang, again, these guys have some pretty impressive showings, but Monster Garo is where they kind of cap. And, I don't think anything narratively really leads me to believe that Monster Garo should be comparable to Boros. Once he gets to his cosmic form, for sure, he's probably beating Boros. But, like, again, Bang, pretty, consistently, or I guess, like, he pretty definitively capped out at like a large building level, and Super Alloy Darkshine probably doesn't scale to Bang in terms of AP. What he has as his advantage is like his defense, but even still, he's not showing any feats where he's like defending against planet busting levels of power. Zombie Man, of course, has his durability, but he's not hurting Boros, and Boros can either completely atomize him or try that route, and if not, you can just throw Zombie Man to like space or something like he did with Saitama. Now, Flashy Flash and Metal Bat are two characters I think have like a pretty decent chance of at least being able to give Boros like a bit of a run for his money. Problem with Metal Bat is that he needs to kind of amp as a fight goes on. So the longer the fight goes on, the like higher his AP gets, and then he's able to fight against characters like Sage Centipede and alongside like Monster Garo. But I don't think he's really gonna be. And in terms of speed, he's not that impressive, right? Boros could just like blitz him, and there's really no feats for his his durability where he should be able to tank like the planet busting cannon or whatever from Boros. Flashy Flash. Now, in terms of speed, I think there can be probably an argument that Flashy Flash is faster than Boros, although there's no real way to get him faster than Boros. The most we have for either character is Saitama acknowledging that they're pretty fast. One, with Saitama being surprised by Boros' blitz, and two, Saitama saying like, hey, you're pretty fast to Flashy Flash, right? Flashy Flash is able to fight with Monsterized Garo and Platinum S, but in terms of speed, we don't really have a way to compare those guys to Boros. Other than just narratively, it seems like Flashy Flash is the fastest character. So, maybe we can give that to him. But then in terms of like AP, he doesn't really seem like he's probably hurting Boros. Again, unless you think swords, and his sword specifically, should be in ignoring conventional durability, which, I don't think is really fair. So, even though I think Flashy Flash maybe has the best chance of, matching Boros in terms of speed, and maybe even is faster than him, I just don't think he has the AP to deal with him. And then Tatsumaki and Genos, just through our scaling with Psycho Sorochi, and of course, assuming that this is happening when Boros invaded Earth, Genos wouldn't be at that Psycho Sorochi level, so it's very generous of me to put him at that level, right? He definitely got stronger as the series went on. But yeah, so, using these two even at their strongest, as we said before, Psycho Sorochi just scales pretty definitively below Boros. So there's really no way to reason that these guys should really be able to hurt him. And we've seen with Saitama that characters who are significantly stronger than Tatsumaki are pretty much able to resist her telekinesis if her telekinesis doesn't scale to their level of power. So in this case, we could assume that Boros, because he's so much stronger, probably won't get too heavily affected by Tatsumaki's telekinesis, can largely resist it. So that's pretty much all I have for this. I think Boros pretty definitively wins. And honestly, I don't know if this one's very controversial. I think most people who are at least kind of familiar with One Punch Man scaling probably assume that even narratively, Boros feels like he's a step above everything we've seen, aside, of course, from Cosmic Garo at the end of that arc. Because Cosmic Garo was able to push Saitama to evolve further. So very definitively is going to be stronger than Boros. But that's all I have for this. And, if you like this content, let me know. I am looking to grow this YouTube channel, so every subscribe helps. Every like kind of guides me as to exactly what kind of content people are into and what people are willing to watch. So any sort of feedback, any sort of guidance can be really helpful. And thank you guys.